a new story from James Gray. Also follow his stories by liking and subscribing.
Do you like our videos? Subscribe and give a like. Press the bell so you don't miss anything. So make a cup of coffee or tea, or have a beer with a bag of popcorn and enjoy this story. The parents of a 10-year-old girl were devastated when they discovered their daughter was pregnant. What they thought was a common indigestion or viral infection turned out to be a baby. Luria and Albert were determined to find out who had robbed their daughter of her innocence, but sweet little Sia had no memory. After safely delivering a baby boy, her doctors noticed strange behavior while Sia was playing and asked her to explain what she was doing. Then they discovered something shocking.
The shocking story of the 10-year-old girl who turned out to be pregnant. The parents of a 10-year-old girl were devastated when they discovered their daughter was pregnant. They did not know who the father was, but on the day of the birth, doctors discovered something that shocked them all. Annabelle and Albert, the proud parents of Suzan, a beautiful 10-year-old girl. They loved going on adventures, playing games, going to the cinema or the fair, and generally just passing the time happily in each other's company. They were a very close family, and they all loved each other very much. Suzan was very sociable and enjoyed being with people when she got the chance. She would chat to everyone. Her father always made jokes about it, and always said she was a chatterbox. It was a joke in the family. Suzan didn't mind when she wasn't with her parents and friends. Suzan was at school or doing extracurricular activities. She excelled in most subjects and enjoyed taking part in all after-school activities, from knitting club to football. She was a very talented young girl who everyone thought had a very bright future ahead of her. But parents Annabelle and Albert could not have been more proud of a daughter like Suzan. Truly the ideal daughter, one who would make any family happy. But one day the family's world fell apart when they heard some terrible and shocking news, something they never expected to hear. So soon that morning, Suzan complained of feeling sick and had stomach cramps. Her parents assumed she had eaten something wrong and said she would feel better in a day or two. But Suzan only started to get worse, and as the days and weeks passed, another worrying symptom appeared for us. Her belly was getting bigger. At first, her parents thought it was some kind of swelling or bloating, but that did not make sense. To determine for the last time what was wrong with Suzan, Albert went to the hospital with his daughter. When they arrived at the hospital, a friendly doctor looked at Suzan and frowned. It seemed like he never had seen anything like it before. He checked the girl's blood pressure and even did some blood tests before taking her for a scan as a precaution. But what he saw when he looked at the results made his blood run cold. Suzan was pregnant. The girl was only 10 years old and had been pregnant for several months. Annabelle and Albert were in shock. How could their sweet, innocent baby be expecting a baby? Was it possible for such a young girl to get pregnant? What should they do? All these questions raced through their minds, but they quickly disappeared and were replaced by anger. Who could have done this to Suzan? Their daughter's pregnancy was surely the result of something terrible that had happened to her. Her angry parents were determined to investigate the matter thoroughly. They started by asking Suzan if they knew who had gotten her pregnant. They asked if anyone had touched her inappropriately or done something she did not like. Someone had done something wrong, asked her to keep it a secret, but to their surprise, Suzan answered all their questions no, and she was honest. She seemed just as confused and bewildered by the whole thing as her parents, but Annabelle and Albert didn't leave it at that and started going through a list of men Suzan could have been in contact with: school bus drivers, teachers, coaches, everyone who could have done something terrible to a girl. DNA testing was done on the baby and then on all the suspects, but again, against all odds, none of the men, the suspected parents, were actually the father. The mystery only deepened as they continued to investigate. It wasn't long before Suzan was due to give birth. Annabelle and Albert felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and excitement. They had always wanted a small child, but not under these circumstances. It was strange for them to experience so many emotions. One moment, they had a smile on their face. The next, they were in tears of sadness and shock at how their lives had changed and how a beautiful baby had ended up in this terrible position at such a young age. But there was no time to brood or grieve. She had to be there to support her daughter, who had gone into labor. After her short and surprisingly easy work, she eventually gave birth to a baby boy. She named Raoul. Suzan was exhausted. You could tell she was proud of her little boy. The doctors checked the baby, and thankfully, they found that there was nothing wrong with Raoul. The birthing process had not caused any major damage to Suzan's body. That was a miracle. Giving birth is a stressful process for a grown woman, let alone a young and innocent 10-year-old girl. That evening, the doctors came to Suzan's house, and they saw her standing in front of them on her bed. Her father and mother had gone home to get some things. A girl left alone with Raoul, sleeping next to her in the crib. To cheer her up, one of the doctors gave her 2 dolls, a male and a female. Female, they looked at her and smiled. She played with it while the doctors checked her. But out of the corner, or as one of the doctors saw something, Suzan had positioned the dolls so that it looked like they were performing some kind of sexual act. Curious as to why she was doing that, doctor asked who the dolls were. Suzan laughed and said that the bottom one was her and the top one her boyfriend Herman. He was a boy who lived a few houses down from Suzan, only a few years older than her, and a very introverted, innocent child. Their mothers were good friends, and Suzan and Herman often played together while mothers were talking. So when I asked Suzan why her dolls were positioned like that, she said it was just a game and that they were playing a family while they waited for their mothers. The 2 friends were just playing around and putting themselves in compromising positions. Everything started to become clear to the doctors. The real father was the son of the neighbor. He informed Annabelle and Albert of his shocking findings. They too were shocked. They had suspected an adult of having deliberately made some mistake, but the truth was completely different. Annabelle and Albert asked Herman's parents if they could do a DNA test on their son. His own parents were, of course, just as shocked by this life-changing revelation, and they were fully behind finding out if Herman really was Raoul's biological father. While waiting for the results, they asked him about Suzan's pregnancy and what had happened. Everything became clear immediately. Herman did not know what was going on. He was just like Suzan, very innocent, and did not understand the consequences of a game. He thought they were just having fun and did not understand that because of that fun, he was now the father of a son. Annabelle and Albert were beyond shocked, but couldn't even be mad at him because it was so obvious that the boy was just as innocent and ignorant about these things as Suzan. All they could do was support the boy and be there for Raoul as he grew up. Annabelle and Albert decided to raise Raoul as their own. They would never hide the true identity of a real mother and father. But it was clear that Suzan and Herman weren't ready to be parents. Someday, they might want more children, but for now, Suzan and Herman had to stay children and keep their innocence. They had all the time in the world to grow up, and a baby at such a young age didn't have to ruin that. So now it is up to you. What did you think of this incredibly shocking story? How would you react if you found out your 10-year-old daughter was pregnant? And what would you have done after you found out who Raoul's father was? We would love to hear from you, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Like and subscribe to help me grow.